Okay.
Should be all set now.
Thank you, Tony. Good evening, everybody. For those who don't know me, I'm Sergeant Joe Santolo. I'm the Community Service Officer, Supervisor up at A7. I have Officer Domenico here tonight. He's going to provide us with an update. But before we get to that, I think most of us know Captain Kelly McCormick has moved on. He's now the night commander citywide. And he wanted me to pass along to all the community meetings a heartfelt thank you. His last 11 years here couldn't have been as successful as it was without these meetings. He's a big advocate of these meetings, and he wants to say thank you. With that said, I'm excited to introduce a new captain. Here's Captain Burns. He has experience working very closely with community, especially with these meetings. I do believe he was a community service supervisor himself. And I've noticed in a couple of months that he's been here, the major issues, he wants to come right out onto the scene, take a look himself, and give us direction on what he wants done. And on the minor issues, he does make sure through email that we do get those issues satisfied. So without further ado, Captain Burns, I think you're on. I think so.
Yeah, I saw him in the list.
Yeah. I think, yeah, he's on the list somewhere.
See if I can ask him to unmute.
If not, we can shoot him Tommy can start with his update and I can shoot him a text.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Tom, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep, there you
All right. I'll just go over some of the reports and some of the incidents that we've had.
Oh, you're muted again.
My microphone's not working.
Oh, it's not. Hold on. Sorry about that.
Hi, everyone. Apologies. I'm having technical difficulties in my office downstairs with the computer. So I ran upstairs real quick and jumped on Sergeant Santolo's computer. I just heard him do the introduction. Yeah, my name is Captain Sean Burns. I'm the new commander here at District 7. It's a pleasure and an honor to be assigned over here to this neighborhood. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to get engaged with the community. As Joe said, I have previous experience working as a community service sergeant myself. I worked approximately 4 years as a community service sergeant out in the Alston-Brighton area. Some of the challenges that were presented out there, I've noticed, I've seen some of that over here, especially with some of the development that's taking place in this community. I have a lot of experience working with that. I grew up in South Boston. East Boston seemed very far away when I was a kid growing up. And it's funny that it's only a couple minutes away. But I'm really looking forward to getting to know everybody. The offices here have been very welcoming so far. The community has been unbelievable so far. I've been really impressed in how the community has embraced me already. So I'm looking forward to it. And thank you for having us as part of this meeting. So,
Welcome. We're glad
thank
to have
you. Thank you. So I'm gonna run back downstairs. I'm gonna listen and try to fix my computer. I'll give it back to Sergeant Santolo. So thanks once again, folks.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction.
Hey, Tom, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here. You got it?
Okay, yep, take over, bud.
All right, first of all, we want to like to welcome Captain Sean Burns, District 7. He's one of our youngest captains in the city, and he's full of energy, and we're glad to have him. So now we'll get to some of the reports. In the past 4 weeks in the Orion Heights area, it's been pretty good up there. we haven't had any violent crimes. There's been no house breaks, no commercial breaks, and the drug overdoses seem to have gone away. There's very few of them. And another bit of good news is the group of motorcycle and scooters that were hanging on McClellan Highway, they seem to disappear. We've done some good work with them to get rid of them. We've made some arrests up there, towed some of the vehicles. So that's good news. It was becoming a pain in the neck early summer. The car breaks in Orient Heights, they've increased, mostly on the Breeds Hill area, Gladstone Street, Orient Ave, Layden Street. Now, this has been happening in the overnight hours. So there's been a couple of kids they've seen been doing it. So we're just telling people, don't leave any items in your car that are visible, because it makes an easy target, easy opportunity for the thieves. And make sure you keep your car doors locked. The catalytic converters on the car, they're being stolen citywide. And the reason for that is they're an easy sell. They'll bring them to the junkyard and they'll get a couple $100 quick money for them. So be careful with that. We did have a good arrest up in on the 14th, I believe. It was up the corner of Wally and Bennington Street for a stolen car. One of the locals was arrested after a short foot chase. Another thing we want to be aware of, the package thefts. It's Christmas season coming up, and package thefts all over the city have gone up. So if you do have one stolen, make sure you report it. And if you do come out on the station and report it, make sure you have some type of proof of purchase so we can identify the property that was stolen. Another thing we're concerned with, the phone scams. We're always getting calls on the phone scams. And we recently had two serious ones here in East Boston. There was an Orient Heights gentleman who was scammed out of $29,000. Another female from the Maverick area, she was scammed out of $9,000. And the people that are making these phone calls, they're very, very good at what they do. They're good con artists and they do it for a living. So just beware. Anybody calls, if it sounds, just hang up on them. Don't even engage with them. One more thing of note here. We just seen a small increase of motor vehicle accidents in the Orient Heights section, mostly on Bennington Street, and of course, the speedway up there on McClellan Highway. That's where most of our serious accidents occur. Just to let you know, we do put out a traffic enforcement unit on every shift, every day, 7 days a week to try to curb this. So we're doing our best out there. And that's about it.
Okay, Tony, before we end, I just got to add, before every meeting, I will talk to the detective supervisor. He wants to get the message across about Venmo. And if you're going to Google a company, a plumber, a carpenter, a cleaning company, or anything of that sort, please do some research and make sure it's a reputable person or company. We have numerous cases ongoing right now of folks just Venmoing money when the vendor is asking for half the payment. You know, usually they'll say, I need to buy supplies, and somebody will send, or we had detective just.
Because you're like, what the fuck?
Oh, sorry.
How did they get these into fucking New Zealand?
I'm sorry.
I can't find this. I don't know how
Okay.
to do it.
Sorry about that. I think a couple people
John.
accidentally were muted.
Okay, yeah, we had somebody send $1,000 for through Venmo for some supplies on a company that the person had, just got offline. So just be very careful about if anybody's asking for half the payment before, let the antenna go up and make sure we do some research before we send some money over there. Other than that, that's all we got. We can take questions if anybody has any.
Okay, we'll see if any pop up in the chat, or if anyone wants to raise their hand and ask a question, you're welcome to as well. I'd actually heard about that Venmo scam with tattoo deposits. Actually, there are fake artists on Instagram, and they'll say, I'll take a deposit, come in the shop, and they don't actually work there.
Yeah, so it's in every category. We have fake carpenters, fake plumbers, the cleaning people, give me money for the supplies, and then there's, just make sure you get a real human, breathing, reputable person on the other end before we start shipping money over.
For sure. I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay, I'll monitor. I can stay on and monitor the chat for a little bit.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. All right. With that, next up on our agenda, we have Cindy Baxter, who is the Community Advisory Board member for the Conservation Commission. She'll be presenting on the Wetlands Phase 3 ordinance.
Great. And thank you, Tina. And thanks to everybody who's online. I really appreciate it. I'm pleased to say that some of you may know me from the Jeffreys Point area. I was on the JPNA for a while, and I'm pleased to say that I've moved to Orient Heights, and we love it here. It was one of those pandemic decisions, I guess, maybe just something different to do, and we've really, really loved being here. So one of the, as many people may know, the Conservation Commission takes care of our waterways and wetlands, which is really a big deal here in Orient Heights, where we've got Belle Isle Marsh, and we have the opportunity for a lot of protection of the area in which we live. So the Conservation Commission has been working on the wetlands ordinance for quite some time, really since 2019, but things started to get moving again regarding the wetlands ordinance. And the wetlands ordinance specifically is going to empower the Conservation Commission to have guidelines and regulations for projects that have to do with the wetlands. I had not been exposed to the Conservation Commission until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, certainly familiar with conservation commissions from other areas. But I didn't really realize what they could do in the city of Boston. And when I went to my first public hearing back in the day where you could actually look at people face to face, I was surprised to find there weren't very many people in attendance. It's one of those areas where we truly have an opportunity to be heard because people don't always take the opportunity to attend. So that's why I was really excited when I got the chance to apply for the Community Advisory Board on the Wetlands Commission. It is in conjunction with Climate Ready Boston, and it does, as I mentioned, establish some of those guidelines that allows the commission, when they review projects, to really determine to determine, is this in the community's benefit or is it not in the community's benefit? So the other neat thing about what's going on with the Conservation Commission is this is the first time they have used a community advisory board. So they're excited about getting community input. And I'm really interested in making sure that it's not just the 8 or so members on the CAB, but it really truly represents what all of us feel are going to benefit our neighborhood and community. Especially since it's that for their first time, I want to make sure that they can feel the power of what the community really wants and that they can take advantage of our voice. The other thing that's really exciting about what's going on is the fact that this is a unique time with so many elections right at our doorstep. The city councilor, the mayoral candidates, all are tuned into environmental justice. And of course, we've even got a Senate race going on, you know, for our community as well as surrounding towns that will be represented again in the December election. So this is a time not only to show the Conservation Commission what we're interested in, but to have our representatives on the council, in the Senate, understand how important the environment is to us, especially here in East Boston, where we've typically spoken up for a number of things that are important to us. So when is the Conservation Commission working with the Community Advisory Board? The duration of our involvement is really not that long. And that's because what the city intends is to get input from the representatives and then move on to a final draft of the regulations. After that, have a public hearing so all of us can weigh in equally. So for the Community Advisory Board, this month and sometime next month, will be the duration or the end of what we do as a CAB. After which, as I mentioned, those draft regulations will be available for a public hearing that, as far as we can tell, is going to be on Zoom, just like we're doing now. So what can you do? Any participation is great. So if environment is your thing and you're really interested in just hearing more details, there's a lot of information on boston.gov, and there's a link that I've included in the takeaway flyer that Tony included. You can also reach out to me directly in email, and I'm happy to explain what we're doing, how we're doing it, who's engaged, and how it can benefit us as a community, especially here in Orient Heights. If you're interested in more than just details about the Conservation Commission and this wetlands ordinance, and you really want to provide some input into the draft regulations, then please do feel free to reach out to me. I'm really anxious to make sure that as many people who are interested in doing so can give me input so that I can speak up on behalf of all of us, especially given the short duration timeframe. I want East Boston's voice to be heard. What's the third thing you can do? Certainly, if you're able to attend the public hearing about the draft regulations, that will be great. It will be on boston.gov, and I'll make sure that I get the information to the council so that it's available for Facebook as well. And it's not just this hearing. There are other hearings. As I mentioned, my very first experience several years ago, I was just surprised to find out that my husband and I were one of maybe a handful of attendees. So when you go, especially given the ability to do it virtually on Zoom, you definitely will be heard, and they will definitely be appreciative of you taking the time. I found that the Conservation Commission participants are not only open-minded, but they're eager to hear what we have to say. So again, there's more information available on boston.gov. My email is available on the flyer. And I look forward to everybody's participation and input. It's greatly appreciated. Tony, thanks so much for giving me the time on the meeting. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you for coming and speaking.
Thank you.
And I shared the link to the flyer as well as your name and email in the chat. And we'll include that with the minutes and everything too. Okay, so next up, we have a lot of announcements about various things that are going on in the city and whatnot. So I will share my screen here. Share this presentation. Oops, that is not the button I wanted to press. Present this presentation. There we go. Oops, and I am at the end. That is not where I want to be. There we go. So there is a study on how Boston residents feel about housing. This is by researchers at Harvard and George Washington University. Their names are Justin De Benedictus Kessner and Michael Hankinson. Justin reached out to us and requested that we share this study with folks in the neighborhood. If you want to participate, a link was sent along with the agenda. It's also listed here. It's recommended that you complete the survey on a laptop or a desktop. Apparently it doesn't react well on a phone or a mobile device. So if you have any additional questions, their email is boston.housing.survey@gmail.com. And it'll actually work without the dots, fun fact. If you have an email address, mine is tony.marie.noble@gmail. It actually works as tonymarienoble@gmail. So I always don't say the dots to people because it just somehow adds it. So fun fact for you. There is a demolition meeting for 1201 Saratoga Street. That is on Thursday, this Thursday, October 21st at 6 p.m. It will be held virtually, and they are demolishing this building to build a 6-unit condominium. So again, all the details for these are within the agenda. And this is the same details as the previous slide. There's another meeting scheduled for Tuesday, November 9th. That is the Boston Landmarks Commission public hearing. So it does not take the place of that one. So if you are interested in either, the details for that meeting is right here. I don't believe they have the details, the link for the Landmarks Commission meeting in this flyer, but we can find that and pass it along. There's a Halloween Children's Festival happening Friday from 5 to 8 on the Common. Adults and children are encouraged to wear Halloween costumes and participate in a wide range of fun and spooky family activities. Test your skills and courage to find your way out of the haunted funhouse maze. Hop on the train hosted by Cabot Creamery Cooperative and make your way over to our glow-in-the-dark play space for some nighttime fun featuring LED illuminated swings, seesaws, and cornhole. There's also a Legoland Discovery Center Boston event going on there. They're building a Lego pumpkin for the pumpkin patch, and there's also a Lego Master Model Builder Sean in attendance. And that Lego part specifically goes from 5:30 to 7:30. These events will include glow-in-the-dark themes, children's crafts, scarily delicious snacks, and refreshments that are provided by Cabot Cheese, Duncan, and Hood. There's also the Harvard University's Stress and Development Lab has fun games focused on learning about the brain and how we think. And then they have a visit from the Mass Horticulture Society, Audubon Society, and an art activity with the Mayor's Mural crew and other activities. There's a link as well as a flyer and everything that will be sent along with the meeting minutes. I don't think the flyer itself was in the agenda when I sent it out, but we'll include that with the minutes. The Mass Department of Transportation is doing a corridor study on Route 1A. The purpose of this study is to assess the potential uses of the MassDOT and MBTA rail parcels that are located between 1A and Chelsea Creek in East Boston, as well as evaluate the 1A corridor between Bell Circle and Day Square. The study will analyze the impact of any potential uses of the rail parcels on the Route 1A corridor and identify opportunities to improve connections to the local and regional roadway network, enhance transit, improve pedestrian and bicycle accommodations, facilitate freight movements, address safety deficiencies, and mitigate potential impacts of climate change. Tony Noble, that's me, will be participating in the studies working group for about 18 months or so. That begins this Wednesday, so I don't really have any details apart from what's on this slide. Hopefully after that meeting on Wednesday, I'll have a good idea as to the process, and then I will reach out to all of you for your thoughts. Of course, you can send me your thoughts now on 1A and that corridor between Bell Circle and Day Square. I'm not sure what the process is now, so when I'll be able to submit that feedback to the Department of Transportation, but hopefully I will be able to get everyone's voices heard, because I know there are certainly opinions on that corridor. So no East substation, question 2. This is a non-binding ballot question regarding the proposed Eversource substation in East Boston, sponsored by 10 Eastie residents and supported by Councilor Lydia Edwards. It will appear on the November ballot during our municipal election. And this question asks voters, should a high voltage electric substation be built at 400 Condor Street in East Boston, along the Chelsea Creek, near homes, parks, playgrounds, jet fuel storage, and in a flood risk area, rather than in a nearby alternative safe and secure location, such as non-residential Massport land at Logan Airport? Eversource is proposing to build a substation on Condor Street, and that's widely opposed by residents, organizations, and elected officials. There's a lot more details at this link here, and you can reach out to East Boston Climate Action at gmail.com with your thoughts. There is also a petition to preserve open green space at Piers Park. Massport redesigned Piers Park Phase 2, and they've now decided that the open green space is going to be asphalt walkways, another playground that's adjacent to an existing one, and a parking lot. People want to preserve that green space because people use it for picnics, yoga. There's a sailing center there that children come and do physical activities on that lawn. It's just a general nice hangout spot. And I know they were also going to cut down some trees too to put in like the asphalt and everything. So if you'd like to join the Facebook group as well, they have one called Friends of Piers Park. And we'll send along both of these links along with the meeting minutes. So there are no development presentations tonight because there are no proposals up for a vote. 1141 Bennington Street presented on October 7th, and they'll be returning on November 4th. There was an error in actually both of the agendas that I sent out because the initial one said November 2nd was the next design review committee meeting, but I must have just been like thinking about election stuff and put November 2nd. It is in fact November 4th. So I ended up sending out the reminder email today and then did not correct November 2nd in all places. So it is November 4th, and they will be returning then along with 2 Shawsheen Road. And this is a new presentation. The proposal is for 63 units, 49 affordable and 14 home ownership with 28 parking spaces. I did want to go over a bit of the feedback here that we had on 1141 Bennington Street. So I just also want to check the chat in case I miss any questions here. Let's see, Gail said, this is precipitated by Cargo Ventures' interest in the rail bed for their truck/freight route to Massport. These meetings are open to the public. The link should be available also by searching for Route 1A study. Okay, thank you, Gail. I wasn't sure if they were open to the public or not. But I will be providing updates on everything I learned there and what we hear. So back to 1141 Bennington Street. I'll just quickly go through these questions and the responses that we received from the developer. So on the design, why is the building in 2 sections and not one continuous building facing the marsh? It could be a curved building, taking advantage of the larger lot at the end and taper to the smaller lot at the entry. So the BPDA actually required that the building be split into 2 to break up the massing and allow for sight lines from Bennington Street. They wanted to maintain the view corridors off of Bennington Street so they could see into the marsh area. So the next question is, will the traffic flow into the small neighborhoods such as Palermo and Swan next door? They did a traffic study and there's no reason for the residents in this new proposed building to go down Palermo or Swan. This is a 5-story building that impacts views of abutters across the street in a max 3-story area. Their response was, we broke up the massing in order to maintain view corridors, railroad right-of-way, wide sidewalks, site grade, and wide street help with the large scale of the project. The project is adding supply to market rate and affordable housing at the same time. And they said that taking it down a floor would cut into the parking. People were asking why there wasn't more retail space. They stated they have subsidized allowance for a retailer to add to the community, but they don't have the frontage, so that's why there's only one retailer or one retail spot. They want it to be successful and didn't think that adding more would be visible from Bennington Street. What about the effects on Belle Isle Marsh? They say they have extended the comment period and the specific discussion around the marsh. They promised Gail Miller and the Friends of Belle Isle Marsh that wetland scientists are being interviewed and that they'll be selected to study the existing conditions. Restoring the marsh is not part of the long-term solution, or sorry, it could be part of the long-term solution, but it is not currently a commitment. The project is being coordinated with the city and Marsh Resilience, and there'll be a separate meeting and a presentation solely dedicated to the marsh. And we are going to get the presentation from that too to share with folks after that is complete. The site use as an infrastructure staging area is very useful. Where will that type of needed use move to? They stated that the current staging area over there is a temporary use and the need will end in an estimated 6 to 12 months, but they can pack up and leave any day if they need to. So someone had asked, will you commit to keeping the height the same as the casket company? And they stated that that is just not infeasible. It could basically only be a parking garage if it was 1 story. The sidewalk on Bennington Street running along the site parallel to it is dangerous. And by this, they meant it was uneven and broken. And the developers stated that they could potentially redo the sidewalk. So regarding the height, there was another question stating going down on the height would show a lot to the community. Would you compromise? Their response was they're still taking in comments and hopefully they can effectively respond to concerns, but in a manner where the project can still be built. They're just starting the process and there are continual meetings, submission of comments from us here at Orient Heights Neighborhood Council. There'll be another round of comments in November on the 4th at the next design review committee meeting. And after they receive all of these comments and do all of these meetings, then the BPDA takes all of the feedback and will issue a document stating the key issues. And then they will have to point out that, get to a point that works for everybody based on the issues that were outlined by BPDA. So as they said, as Gail Miller mentioned, there are a lot of questions and not all of them will be answered at this time. Another question that was asked was, what about the 100 cars looking for parking every night? The response to this was that it is not their first time building in this area. And looking at the unit mix and the demographic of who will live there, they think that the parking ratio of 0.5 in areas that are adjacent to transit is the right parking ratio. And they referred to another building that they had included. I forget what the ratio was for parking, but it was at least, I believe, a parking spot per unit. And they stated that they now have, or they're losing money because people aren't parking there because they don't have cars. So that was one of the examples that they gave. And the final question that we had was, how does this development improve Palermo Street? And the response to that was, Palermo at Bennington is currently a tight angle and it's a wide intersection. The plan with the city put forward will make Palermo straight and add a green space where that weird angle is, and it's where it's wide. Let me fix this. So they can't put in a signal unless there's a certain volume of traffic going through that intersection, and it currently does not meet it. So there will not be a light there, but there will be like a right angle turn. And we do have a question in chat. Where is that fictional development where they're losing money due to people not parking there? Is there a fee associated with? I'm not sure about that. I'm sorry, let me finish reading a question aloud. Is there a fee associated with parking there that's leading people to not park there? I'm not sure about how they run that. It was just the example they gave where they had built a lot of parking spots and then that area is not being used. I think the idea would be that they could be making more money off of those spaces if it was like more units, or if it was a retail space, then they could actually make money instead of having an empty spot that might be associated with a unit. That's my guess. So close out of this. And up next is the discussion, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, around the borders. So this is brought up in September as well. We would like to come to an agreement with Harborview where there's no overlap between us. Currently, our territories extend over each other, and that makes it possible for a development proposal to be reviewed and voted on by an unexpected neighborhood association. And Jeffries Point and Gov Street were previously able to hash out a contested area, and they now have completely separate jurisdictions. So we're trying to do the same thing. It was suggested previously that we have one big meeting for all of us in both neighborhoods, or that the developers present to both neighborhood councils. But it seems that the easiest way of doing this would be to just settle the border, and then there's no confusion around which neighborhood association folks need to go to. So the previous suggestion was to change the border to, I believe it was Trident. And actually I have pictures here. So this was the previous suggestion. We lost this area over here, Bennington Street from Trident to Westbrook, and half of Constitution Beach. So I'll go back to this. This is the current suggestion, where Westbrook would be the dividing line and Constitution Beach would be like a shared territory. And on the note of Constitution Beach, if folks would be interested in a shared OHNC, HVNA beach cleanup, they had suggested that as perhaps an event. And I said, that sounds great to me. I'll gauge interest. So if people would like to help clean up the beach with some of the Harborview folks, we can organize that. Another one of their suggestions, which I think is really great, and I think folks will be very interested in it, was a Senate debate, because we have some candidates in East Boston, and it'd be great to organize that. So if folks have an interest, work with Harborview, and then we can get both of the councils / associations together for both of those events. Do folks have anything they want to say about the border debate or anything? You can feel free to unmute if you like. I think this is the last slide I have here. Yeah, so we have something in the chat. Oh, Larry said yes for the beach cleanup, yes for the Senate debate. Gail said, I cannot see the whole layout and boundaries. Sorry, that might just be, I have the chat open, so it might be covering up part of the map that I'm sharing. But yeah, so the boundary, I think as we stated in our bylaws, is Wordsworth Street. So let me get the little drawing thing out here. So Wordsworth Street, this is where we currently consider our boundary. I know that I'm at 90 Wordsworth, and I received an abutters notice a while ago. This is like some months ago for 22 Wordsworth. And I was surprised that it went to Harborview and not Orient Heights. But then I found out about this whole border confusion. And then I realized, that is why I was unaware. But so that was our original, I'll clear that out. See, I can undo it. That was our original border, and it would change to like Addison Street up to Brandywine, and then down to Constitution Beach along Westbrook. So that, oops, I just drew on this again. So that would be what we are voting on tonight. And I can post the, whoops, yeah, go back. I'm going to post the voting form in the chat so that folks can see it. Share, there you go. So I did get a comment from Frank Biagiotti say, oh, I'm sorry, Joanne Mahoney had commented above that saying, yes to the beach cleanup, who would moderate the Senate debate? That is a good question. I'm not sure. So we'd have to work that out with Harborview, who would be the moderator. But I suppose those details will come. So we have a comment from Frank Biagiotti saying, if you look at the Wally Street development, both sides of the street were posted no parking. Looking there now, there are cars parked on both sides. So transient oriented development, I think that might mean transit oriented development, isn't stopping people from owning cars. Plus, enough money can buy you from anything in this city. I agree with you. I feel like I have seen the complete opposite in my time in East Boston, where people move in and they have more cars than bedrooms. But that's my experience. See, Gail Miller said, I think rather than shutting our boundary at the vertical, I am more concerned about the horizontal boundary because Harborview should not go out to the highway. I think that's been a recurring concern because technically it doesn't view the harbor. They gave a description as to why. Let me just switch over here. I believe the reasoning down here. So the Harborview area, as it was described, encompasses the sub-neighborhoods known or formerly known as Savio, Salesians, and St. Mary's / Star of the Sea, which is the former Catholic church on Moore between Bennington and Saratoga. So yeah, that doesn't, I don't think any of that would extend up to 1A. But that is the description of why Harborview is Harborview. So we have another question from a Feldman. Are there systems in place for abutters in a different district to vote and participate on these border projects? No. It would currently, what is in the overlap, I think the majority of it is already just going to Harborview anyway. I don't know that anyone has reached out about a project that is in this overlap area to the Orient Heights Neighborhood Council. And I know the city itself didn't have anything set in stone as far as like the boundaries themselves, and they told us to kind of hash it out and then tell them. So Larry Monato said Harborview's other boundaries are not what we are discussing or voting on here. Then Gail Miller said, I think the boundary should be more limited to the beach side of Saratoga. Okay, I'll just scroll down over here rather than bring up the full screen presentation thing. If we don't have any, I will post the voting link again. I know we've been over the boundary discussion so many times, but hopefully if this doesn't pass tonight, we can always keep making suggestions. Does that say November 2nd? I can't believe I did not fix that. I'm sorry, November 4th. The next design review committee meeting is November 4th. So Gail said, well, it is still confusing to me what we are voting on. And Cindy Baxter said, just a thought about overlaps. When there are votes, the city definitely likes assurances that people aren't voting twice. That was one of the key issues when we redid the JP&A boundaries. I see. That makes sense. So let me go back to the map here. So what we would be voting on would be, I guess, officially in our bylaws, instead of stating that the boundary is at Wordsworth Street down here, we would go with what Harborview is suggesting and keep this as our boundary down Addison to Brandywine and then down Westbrook. And they would get this sliver of Saratoga over here. So that is what we are voting on this evening. And the forum will be kept open until about noontime tomorrow when we'll tally the votes, just to give people time to get their votes in. Oh, let me get rid of that little squiggle that I just put on the middle of the screen. So now it is time for old business, new business, general community updates. If you have any news that you'd like to share, or if there's something going on in your area that you'd like to talk about, if you have any comments, feedback, updates in general, or for us, feel free to share them now. You can do that in the chat. You can feel free to unmute yourself. Let me just make sure that people have the ability to do that, because, oh yeah, you should be able to. We have another comment in the chat from Larry Monato stating it's just a couple of streets. It makes sense so we can have clear boundaries and move on. The OHNC area would still be massively larger than Harborview. And then we have a comment from Joanne Mahoney saying, please vote on November 2nd. And yes, I echo that sentiment. Hopefully we'll be able to organize a debate with Harborview for the Senate candidates. So with that, if we do not have any additional comments, and I'll give it a second, and I will also share the sign-in form again, just in case some folks did not see it earlier in the meeting. Oh, Mike, you have your hand up.
Hey, Tony, how are you?
Hey,
Good
good.
evening,
How are
everybody.
you?
Just great, just great. So quick question, just kind of circling back to your mention of these researchers that are performing a survey. Was it George Washington University and Harvard on people's attitudes about housing? Are they intent on providing any kind of a presentation preliminary to their survey, or do they plan on visiting with us when the survey is completed to discuss their findings?
I don't know that they intend to present to us. They did give us our email address. They, I think, mostly wanted me to just distribute the survey itself.
Yeah, I plan on taking it. I'm fascinated by these types of studies from a sociological standpoint, because honestly, what they ask often reveals some things, and what they don't ask reveals what they really don't know and what they really don't understand. So I was just curious if there was any additional framing for this. But if there isn't, not a big deal. I'll just click some check boxes and answer the essay question and call it a day.
I can reach out to them too and ask if they can provide us with an update, whether it's, they just give us the results or what.
Again, stuff like this, people might not fully understand the psychographic of who lives in East Boston, whether you're from an old line family or if you've migrated here for economic opportunities, or if you're just looking for an inexpensive place to live. But I'll see what's in there. I was just curious about how they approached us and if there was any other kind of preamble for this, but that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Donna Kurz said excellent questions about the survey. So thank you for that. Liliana Isaac Snyder is asking, is the Shawshene project the same location as the proposed hotel? And that I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with the proposed hotel on Shawshene. So Mary Biagiotti actually pointed out that this boundary thing goes through, wouldn't that take me out of the OHNC area? So this is something that we thought of when discussing the boundary issue. And the only thing that pertains to your, I think, residents in Orient Heights is voting. Weirdly, there's nothing in the bylaws like specifically about the chairperson's residence. So if folks don't mind me hanging on and doing all the organizational stuff, but not voting personally, because I would technically be outside of the Orient Heights area at Wordsworth Street, because I'm currently like right on the edge as is. So there's nothing in the bylaws to prevent it as long as I don't vote. So if people don't mind that I am outside, I know Larry Monato mentioned, well, actually, so this is a response to Gail, stating if Wordsworth Street is the boundary to 1A, that's my issue. And Larry Monato stated, but that's not what we are voting on. Feldman said, I don't mind, have at it. And Frank Biagiotti commented on this survey and what Mike had stated, saying, I agree with Mike, they should make a presentation on it so they have an idea. Oh, so we have an idea what it is and who is driving this. And I can do that. I'll reach out to them to try and get a bit more clarification there. Let's see, Gail said, what is the boundary then going west? And I believe we have that on the old proposal. So this is their boundary, which is, why am I blanking on it? It gives the B, the name of that street, and I cannot remember it right now. It's right there. There's a Richdale's. I don't know why I'm blanking on the name of that street. That is the border.
That's Byron.
Byron, thank you. Thank you.
And Byron Street is traditionally and historically the gateway to Orient Heights. I don't have a skin in the game here.
Mhm.
That's where the boundary should be, full stop.
For Orient Heights?
Correct.
Okay.
I couldn't care less where you actually put it, but that's where it should be.
Okay. And I also have, Liliana had said, stay please. So thank you. I'm glad that even if I might potentially end up slightly outside of what is technically in our bylaws, I'll hang around. So I suppose with that, we will adjourn. I'll share the voting link one more time if I can find it. Oops, almost just sent that directly to Frank. There we go. Gail Miller said, the way I'm looking at this boundary, Harbor View is going out toward the highway. And there's a little bit that goes up, not to 1A, but where Wordsworth kind of curves around there. It would just include that part because of the houses there. All right. Well, with that, I suppose we will adjourn. Thank you all so much for your input. Thank you for voting. Be sure to vote on November 2nd. Our next meeting is a design review committee meeting. That's on November 4th. And then November 15th is our regular OHNC meeting. Right, so everybody have a wonderful rest of your Monday. And I will see you soon. Take care.